Hi, I'm Jeff Hamilton, and this is Champaign Spotlight. With me today is Rachel Joy. She's the Director of the Equity and Engagement Department and our Chief Equity Officer. Welcome to the show, Rachel.
Thank you for having me.
So you and I have worked together for quite a while now. So what can you tell us about yourself before you worked with the city?
Well, before coming to the city, I was actually working with various not-for-profit organizations. So I've had a long history working with victims of domestic violence, working in housing situations, working with people who are re-entering our community after incarceration, and also doing some consulting. So I've had quite a variety of a path before coming to the city, actually.
It sounds really rewarding. So you and I were co-workers in the city manager's office, but you were recently promoted. So tell us about your career here with the city.
Yeah, I started in May of 2016. Seems like a short time, but a long time,
Right.
I guess. And just this year, in 2022 of March, actually, I was promoted to the Equity Engagement Director, Chief Equity Officer. And so before that, in the city manager's office, I was actually the Community Relations Manager and Compliance Officer. And so we were, as you know, a division of the city manager's office, and then sort of got our wings from council to create the Equity and Engagement Department. And so I've been in that position of director. So the inaugural director, brand new. So a lot of things there, and really just sort of taking the work from council as they directed with this new department.
Well, that's fantastic, and everybody knows that you're doing just a fantastic job in that position. So, in general, can you tell our viewers, what does the Equity and Engagement Department do?
Well, the Equity and Engagement Department has 3 divisions, so it's a lot of work. So we have the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Division, Community Outreach and Engagement, and Community Safety and Justice. So the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Division is something that we have had for a while.
Right.
So that work has been very important to the city organization and to the larger community. And that's really where we enforce our human rights ordinance. So it is that place where people have complaints of discrimination in public accommodations or employment or in housing, they can come to our office. And the other division is the Community Outreach and Engagement, and that really looks at what are we doing in our community, what are things that we can really engage and work with our community in. We also have, and that sort of houses our Champaign County Community Coalition,
Right.
is also there. And so that work of really getting out and being a part of the community, that's sometimes the complaint, right? Is the city sort of the observer or actually a participant in our community? And we are, and that's what we do in our department. And the last division is Community Safety and Justice, and that houses our Community Gun Violence Reduction Blueprint. And that was something that really sort of spurred, and that was also the opportunity to create the larger department. And in that division, it is really about reducing community gun violence. And so that is really our largest division of individuals that we have working in that division, and then also really working with our community, working collectively and collaboratively with Champaign Police Department as well.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of important but challenging work.
Yes.
So is it common for a city of our size to have a department dedicated to equity and engagement?
No, it isn't. I think that a lot of people think, well, it's a small community. I hear that all the time, right? Everything's happening in Chicago, right? That's it. But it isn't. Having it here is really unique. It is actually historical to have a department completely dedicated to equity in our community. That is unheard of. Sometimes you'll hear the title and position Chief Equity Officer. And so that person has a seat at the table, but maybe doesn't have the necessary tools to actually get work done, right? And so that becomes problematic, but City Council, Champaign City Council said, we want more than that. We want to make sure that we have a real investment in our community, real sort of foundational place for equity.
And why do you think the City Council went that far to create this separate department to make sure that this work was taken care of?
I think they did that because they understand, one, the importance, and that you really have to be, to just keep the work and institutionalize the work. That's what we say a lot, really make it a part of the organizational culture. And so it means that it will outlive them, right? Outlive council, outlive all of us. The issues may still be around. and you have to make sure that you address it. Just like anything else, infrastructure, we know that we can't just have a public works department for a short period of time. It has to be ongoing. They can make great improvements, but there are going to be things, kind of these bumps in the road, if you will. And so that's why I believe council did it, to make sure that we can deal with all the bumps in the road as it relates to societal issues and equity in our community.
That's a real good analogy there. So you kind of did a general overview of your department. So let's take a little bit of time and dig into each of the divisions. So one of them helps with individuals who feel they've been discriminated against. Can you explain what that division does and how the city can help in that area?
Yes, so that's the diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so an individual that may feel that they've been discriminated against would come to our office and they could actually file a discrimination complaint. So the City of Champaign has a human rights ordinance, and that's something that we actually enforce through that department and directly with that division. So if someone believes that they have been discriminated against, they could call the office, they may want to ask questions, they may want to file a complaint, and then we would actually investigate that complaint. So that's something that is confidential and, during that process, and it can take a while, but that's some of the things that we would do. And we also try to make sure that we can educate. We don't want it to be, we gotcha, moment to housing or to any of our businesses. We want to make sure if you don't know something and you think that you might be violating the ordinance, that we can also provide you that education. But also is an opportunity for us to help give voice to those individuals who have been discriminated against, and that they can also come locally for relief.
Right. Well, that's super important, the education part, and making sure that people, if they have questions, if they're a business owner or an apartment owner, they know they can reach out to you with questions. But just having that local resource that somebody can come in and sit down or talk with your staff or make that phone call is probably really important, isn't it?
Yes.
Another one of your divisions was the one for community engagement, and I think you said the Community Coalition was a part of that. Can you tell us a little bit more about that division?
Mm-hmm. And so with that division, it really is that, I would say, fun division, right? Gets to get out in the community, be a part of everything that happens in our community. And so it's also working with youth, a huge focus on youth development. So another piece of an initiative with the Unit 4 School District, as well as the City of Champaign, fits under that division, and it is LIFT, Leading Individuals and Families to Transformation. So it also focuses on youth development and sort of working with partners, and then also really looking at what's going on, right? We turn on the news and we see all these things that happen nationally. What impacts us locally, right? So that division really is looking at emerging community issues. How can we partner? How can we fix things? How can we work better together? And just sort of keeping an eye on that.
Wow, the work of that division sounds really important and very impactful for our community. So our community's been struggling, unfortunately, with a rise in violence lately. And one of the things that the city and that the council adopted is the Community Gun Violence Reduction Blueprint. And if I'm not mistaken, one of your divisions is really kind of primarily responsible for leading the efforts in enacting that, right? Can you
That's
tell
correct.
us about that?
Yep. So that's the Community Safety and Justice Division. And in that division, we have 5 employees. So that is our largest division that are dedicated to looking at reducing community gun violence. So this is working with our Blueprint partners. So we have lots of partners. That was one of the biggest things, is to really look at it. Can't just be the city alone. It's not just our law enforcement agency. It is collectively our community. And so that's really what the job of Community Safety and Justice is, making sure that we're working together to end and reduce community gun violence. So within that, we have 2 positions that we're very excited about: Justice Victim Advocates, and they actually work with the Champaign Police Department. So they are housed there. So this is a real collaborative effort, making sure that when police can go out to calls, that we also have staff that can work and be there and be supportive of victims. And we also have impact outreach workers, because gun violence doesn't just occur to the person who got shot. It happens to the entire neighborhood, that entire community it impacts. And so we have those impact outreach workers as well that go out, they knock on doors, they do canvassing, and then they provide a level of resources and support to that immediate neighborhood. So that's a lot of the work there. And then of course, just providing the education and working with various organizations who have been doing this work, but at one time didn't have funding. So we're continuing to do that, helping to support them and to provide a level of capacity building so they can continue to do that work.
Wow, so it really does take a village, and it sounds like a very wide, comprehensive approach rather than one person with a clipboard trying to help out,
Yes.
right? So, and the support from our community partners in that area sounds really
It's huge.
very important. And you mentioned the police department works very closely with your department, your justice advocates. But what about other city departments?
Yeah, we work with other city departments. We work with Neighborhood Services Department. We work with also our Public Works Department and Planning Department. Sometimes you think, well, how does that sort of work together? But there is something to everything in a neighborhood, right? How people view their neighborhood directly around them. What are some of those things to kind of develop it a little bit more or to rebuild something? And so we work collectively with all of those departments to ensure that we're able to serve our community.
Yeah, that's something the city I think does really well, is working together and supporting each other. And this is such an important need for our community, and the new department serving that need, knowing that you've got the support of your coworkers sounds great.
Yep.
So where can people learn more about the Equity and Engagement Department?
They could actually go to the city's website and then click on our department, the Equity and Engagement Department. They could also call our office at 217-403-8830.
Thanks a lot, Rachel. I appreciate you being with us today and sharing that information with our viewers.
All right, thanks for having me.
All right, thanks.